Boys and girls, women and children of all ages, I am here to bring you the second of 3 videos. This could easily be 2 videos, but I think this video is probably going to go on way too long for me to comfortably put it up as one video. I really don't want to do it, but I did learn quite a bit, so since I set the other one public, I will have to set this one. I do have to tell you that it's a little adjusted from the first video. I didn't record anything previously going into the con. Well, that's not true. I did, but I scrapped it. I will get to that later, but for now I'm going to cover the first 2 days that I kind of went on this con run. That's including the Thursday night for the bar jam night that I usually do. It's the last one till fall, so it was going into the con. I had originally planned on leaving from Fort Dodge, which is an hour away, going straight to Des Moines, which would be another hour and a half, but since I had to pick up Casco over here, I didn't want that sitting in the van all weekend. It's oil paint, so I decided to bring it back here, get some rest in my own bed for one last night, and then finish loading up everything in the morning, and then take off again. So, with that being said, there's a lot to unpack with these 4 days. There are lessons that I learned, lessons that I kind of felt I could skirt around, and then other ones that kind of bit me in the rear, I guess. We will get to all those in due time. But starting Thursday was stellar. I was trying out a couple new things. If you have seen the pictures, you've seen my new spinner rack. I set the spinner rack up back in, it's say November of last year. It's just your basic average holiday card spinner rack. It's got clips to hold things on. The clips are almost too strong for what I want to hang on them, so I decided to modify it so it would work better for hanging prints and stuff on. Similar to what Will Terrell does with his Masonite spinners, but this is a legit spinner rack with just a cage built over it. Got everything in order that I needed to, double checked, triple checked, made sure I had everything I needed, and basically took off Thursday night. Since it was the last jam night, basically meant pulling out all the stops. It was stellar. For sitting in a bar for 4 or 5 hours, made $60, which usually I walk away with maybe $15 sales, maybe none. Usually have a drink and some pizza in a bar with some live music, and that's good enough for me. But since I had to retrieve Casca, the night was already made for me. Hell, the weekend was even made for me, because I've been waiting on this painting for a couple years now. Once I physically picked it up in person, knew it was in my hands, knew it was safe, everything else was gravy at that point. But I happened, just the right people happened to be there that night. I was in a good mood. I just knocked it out of the park with the pitches. Sold a print and a sketch and a trade and a couple buttons, and made $60, which was beyond reason for me, for a Thursday evening in the middle of spring in a bar listening to live music. But it was incredible. Was not anticipating that level of success that night, so I mean, already you're looking at $60 being chipped away from that $350 total cost for the table at Comic-Con, which leaves me about $290 to make up, which that's reasonable, especially not expecting that kind of sales that night. My sister also showed up and hung out with me for a little bit. She gave me a little advice for rearranging my table setup, kind of making it a little bit better. I knew I was in a middle table for the artist alley, which this year they had a corner table, a middle table, and a corner table. A middle table cost $350. I believe the end corners were, I want to say $400, which typically I would spend the other $50 for a corner, but I didn't. My strategy going in was to get a middle table, and hopefully they would not sell the tables next to me, and I'd be able to pick up an extra table for free. So actually happened to be the case, but we'll get to that in a moment. Going into Friday, I was at the top of the mountain, recorded something, just a little bit, something on my way up there. After loading up, loaded my other racks that I had already pre-built. Two and a half hour drive later. Artists weren't allowed to load in Thursday night, so I didn't make it a big deal to get down to Des Moines the day before. We had to be there at 9 a.m. to load in before 2 a.m. I think doors were 4 to 9 o'clock. So, with all that intact, took off, made it on my merry way, got unloaded, got set up reasonably well, and the place was a ghost town. Like, literally half of the tables weren't filled up. This was my table a half hour before the show. You can see all the empty tables beside us. That was on both sides. If our table set was the middle of three, a group of three, I and my neighbor were the only ones on this side of the aisle. The other two groups hadn't sold any tables, so they were vacant. 20 minutes before the show, they came, grabbed all the tablecloths, grabbed the tables, and it just kind of looked like we were an add-on after the fact that evening of. So now I have a lot of issues with how Wizard World operated this year. So this was the layout of the con. You had the big hall right here, which had the celebrity photos, main stage, but main importantly, this was the entrance. This was the only way to get in here. You couldn't get back here because it's the loading dock. Nobody was allowed here. No. The panels were in a separate room over to this way. So you kind of had the bigger booths and everything over here. Like the people paying $1,000 plus for booth space. I think these were broken up into 4 sections, and you had big tent style, like the comic book shops and whatnot. You had entertainment on this stage, but to get to the artist alley, you had to take this one little alleyway. There was no signs. Nobody knew artist alley was over here unless you had the map, and it only had a sign that said gaming. Gaming? Yeah, gaming this way. Gaming was right here. There were arcades set up over here. The cars were set up here, like the Mach 5, DeLorean, Dumb and Dumber van. You had those cars right here. You had a little eating area right here, and then you had the artist alley right here. My table was back here. You had this bank of tables, this bank of tables. They had scratched those out before it started, so you just had my set of tables. You had 1 aisle, 2 aisles, and then this main aisle. So you had tables on this side, tables on this side, tables on this side, tables on this side, and then our table way in the back near the second exit. This was the first exit. Now, that flow is terrible, because if people don't know the artist alley is back here, they're just leaving back through the entrance. And from what I heard, there was nobody checking that, making sure people were leaving through the proper exits, so everybody in the artist alley were kind of getting screwed. For one thing, if you know anything about marketing and layouts of like grocery stores and stuff, you typically put the stuff that people are interested in and want to get to towards the back, so they have to go through everything else, possible sales. The way Wizard World decided to do it is they put all the Artist Alley and all the other like lower denomination poles, I guess, for the show clear in the back, which seemed like an alright emphasis, because there was only supposed to be one entrance and then 2 exits, one through Artist Alley and one near the irregular entrance. The problem is that they didn't advertise where Artist Alley was or the other attractions. They didn't have like a footpath coming to us. Like, it was poorly advertised. It was slow traffic because they didn't offer us kind of way to point us out or where it was. Like, they had maps of showing up where everybody is and like how to find us, but if you weren't looking for us, you weren't gonna stumble upon us, really. It was just a poor layout. And then probably an hour before showtime, it was me in a sea of print vendors. And I don't say that in a bad way. I have nothing against people just selling prints. It just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because 2 nights prior, the Artcasters had their show for dealing with cons, and like they were kind of saying the same thing. And I hadn't seen it to this extent yet, but this was a very clear sign that people making fan art and prints and easily duplicatable artwork are just taking the lion's share, really. I kind of really got down on myself for that, because I mean, I didn't have many prints. I had overpriced prints. The quality is there. They're archival paper, archival print, ink. So I mean, the quality is there. It's just I can't compete with people that are going to Kinko's and making copies of their work. So with all that being said, I did actually end up having a couple sales of my prints. I managed to clean out about half of my sketchbook on Saturday, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I had to make the story up because I felt if Friday was going to be an indication of how the rest of the weekend was going to be, it was going to be a very long weekend. Friday was a bear to get through. You've seen from the pictures, I mean, it was just shoddy at best. My friend came and hang out with me, Luke from my podcast, where we talk about movies and such. We are actually being hosted by Comic Black Book now on their Twitch channel, a little higher quality. I'm going to be bringing the videos over to this channel, but for right now they're on Kirk's channel on YouTube. I'll throw a link to the latest one in my description. But he came and hung out, and it was physically exhausting. If you think about what you have to do when you're at a con, you're selling yourself more than your wares, and that's basically the equivalent of asking the pretty girl out to a dance or a cup of coffee 6, 7, 8 times an hour. When you put up with that much rejection. It just kind of, you kind of sit a little lower in your chair and you kind of slump a little bit, and like, it's hard to come back from that. Even my friend saw it. He's like, he couldn't even handle just hanging out with me at the table for the weekend. He only came that night. He's the guy that got me back into comics. He came there specifically for comics. Like, he had cleared off his credit cards and was looking for comics and couldn't find even a few of the comic book stores had booths at the Comic-Con, and they were just walls of Funko Pops. So if you didn't have Funko Pops or you didn't have prints to sell, you weren't making a dime on Friday night. So just got beat up that night. Decided if it was going to be like this, I was going to be drinking at the con. I asked my friend to bring me a bottle the next day because I had no idea where the liquor store was. I didn't know if I could find one. He made it very evident that he wasn't going to be showing up Friday or Saturday, so I made it a mission to search out a liquor store, and apparently they open at 10 a.m. and I had to be at the con at 9 a.m. so there was no booze to be had on Saturday. All in all, Friday night I did $32. So that paired with Thursday, I at least had $90 in sales, and that's a good chunk taken out of that $350 for the table, but it's still an uphill climb. There were a couple things that were cool that happened. There was some great cosplay that night. Beast was the main attraction for that night. He showed up near the end, so he was a breath of fresh air for like the last hour or so. I really just wanted to walk up to him and ask him if he wanted to do a buddy cop film, Starsky and Hutch style, with Wolverine, because that's a dream of mine and I'm gonna realize it. I do have to apologize to those following my social media. That Friday night was such a particular mountain to climb that my other friend was there Friday night, and he had purchased the Stanley Ultimate ticket for an autograph and photo op, and I think it was like $400. But he had gotten a signed picture of Stanley, and like he did this like the first hour the con was open, and he came and left his stuff at my table. So you see the picture of me and Stanley, that's actually his picture. I just took a picture with him. I meant to say it on Facebook and my other social media that it was a fabricated lie. A few friends do know that. But there's also this double-edged sword that has come along with it, that people are so enamored that he had stopped by the table. Like, it brought a little hope to their lives, but I didn't mean that. I was just kind of screwing around trying to tell a better story than the weekend was shaping out to be. After I posted that picture and it blew up on my Facebook page, I tried telling a few people and like they were not having it. Like, they literally told me that I definitely met him, and it was incredible and all the stuff that was happening, and I was like, I definitely did not. So for people following my social media as much as you possibly could, I'm sure you're watching these videos, and I apologize. I didn't mean to lie. I was just fabricating a better story to sell than what I had for that Friday night. So we will continue on with Saturday and Sunday. I'm going to cut it right here, and then I'll go continue on with the story, because I think we're about at 20 minutes right now. But things did pick up, and I still learned quite a bit, and I'll tell you about that in just a second. Well, tomorrow, I guess. Once this video comes out, the third part will be out the following day. So let's find the table at a Comic-Con. Quite a mountain to climb, but I appreciate everybody that's been saying anything on social media and asking questions about my setup and whatnot. I have a feeling my setup's getting even better, and I think I learned even a couple more tricks doing this con, so I will get into those in a little bit. Thanks.